My name is Chris. I am a campaigns officer with the Reading Agency, and I am absolutely delighted to welcome Liz Flanagan, who is the award-winning author of Eden Summer for young adults and also books for children. And today we're going to be talking about her Wildsmith series. So we've got Into the Dark. Oh, it's not good. Oh no, my blur is affecting. Oh wait. Here we go. Into the Dark Forest. Wildsmith book 1, Into the Dark Forest, and then the second book is the City of Secrets. I'm going to pass over to Liz now. I'm going to turn my camera off so that we can all enjoy Liz. And just as a reminder, I will put links in to buy the books towards the end of the session. If you've got any questions, if you could please put those into the Q&A box. If you've got any general comments, and please do let us know where you're joining us from today, you can do that in the chat box. But just make sure any questions go in the Q&A. We'll have lots of time for questions at the end. And yeah, sit back and enjoy.
Oh, thanks so much, Chris. Hey, good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for coming along. As Chris said, I'm Liz Flanagan. I'm the author of some books for children and young adults. And today I will mainly be talking about Wildsmith, Into the Dark Forest, and Wildsmith, City of Secrets. So just bear with me a moment. I'm going to share my screen, and that's got some pictures on that we'll be using. Great. So to start us off, who do you all think gets to be an author? Because that's my job, and I feel so lucky to be able to be an author. So if you know, you feel free to put something in the chat. Who do you think gets to be an author? I'll just give you a minute to answer and see if anybody knows. Because being an author, you don't have to go to author school. You don't have to pass a particular exams. So who gets to do that? What would you say? I'll just wait a minute and see if anybody put something in the chat. Do you know what? The answer is that anybody can be an author. And what do you think it's like being an author? I think Chris is going to put up something on the screen where you will get to answer a poll. Oh, the chat isn't working, but somebody has put anyone can be an author as long as you are passionate. Oh, brilliant. So year 5 in Broadstairs, you're right too. You said anyone can be an author. Brilliant. Anyone? Do you know what? You've got the right answers. A class 4R in Hastings say people who are creative, people with different ideas. Exactly right. Thank you so much, Calypso class. Oh, Mikhail wants to be an author. Brilliant. I'm so glad. Okay. So Chris, can we have the poll up as well? Look, can you see that on the screen? What is it like to be an author? You get to decide. Is it, number 1, earning loads of money and being recognised when you're in the supermarket? Is it 2, sitting at home in your pyjamas making things up? Is it number 3, travelling around the UK and talking to lots of children? Or is it the last one, having no colleagues to chat to except for your cat? Okay, so who wants to have a go at that poll? What do you think the answer is? See if your class can vote. Is it number 1, earning loads of money and being recognised in the supermarket? Number 2, sitting at home in your pyjamas making things up? Number 3, travelling around the UK and talking to lots of children? Or number 4, having no colleagues to chat to? Okay, go ahead and vote. What is it like to be an author?
I'm not sure if you can see it, Liz, but we've got loads of answers coming in. Are you able to see?
I can't see that. So
Okay,
what do we have, Chris?
We have, so currently we've got 22, so it's gone up to 25 people. So we've got 21 have said traveling around the UK and talking to lots of children. We've had 5 say sitting at home in your pajamas and making things up. And we've had 1 person say having no colleagues to chat to except your cat.
Yes. So do you know what? Everyone who voted for anything apart from the first one is absolutely correct. It's a really strange kind of job. It's a job of two halves, because a lot of the time I am sitting quietly at home and making things up, and it's true, you could do that in your pajamas if you wanted to. And then the other half of the job is traveling around and talking to lots of people, including lots of children in schools, which is my favorite bit of the job. And also on a really quiet day, I might only have my cat to speak to, because it's not like working in a cafe or working in a big company where you might have lots of colleagues. So well done, you are absolutely correct. So, and one of the reasons why I wanted to be an author is because I absolutely love reading. So I wonder whether you share some of these feelings too. Being able to read is amazing, because you can take your book anywhere with you. You don't have to recharge it. It never runs out of battery. You can read at home, in bed, you can read on the bus. You can basically read anywhere. And what I really love about it is, you know, if I'm tired, or if I'm bored, or if I'm worried, or if I'm feeling ill, I pick up a book and it just takes me away to another place, and it makes me feel like I'm living the adventures in the book. And so whatever you would love to imagine, whether it's riding on a dragon, or scoring the winning goal at the World Cup, or exploring other planets, there is a story about that. And I would just say to you, if you haven't yet found the perfect book for you, then please, please keep looking. It might be a story, it might be illustrated, it might be non-fiction, it might be a graphic novel, it might be a quiz book, it could be any kind of book. But I do believe there is the perfect book for you out there. And you could ask somebody like a teacher or a bookseller or a librarian, because they would have some brilliant recommendations for you. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to be an author. So let me tell you a little bit about my series. So in book one, this is about a girl called Rowan, and she's just having an ordinary busy day, and then her life changes all at once. She has to leave her home, her friends, even her dad, because a war breaks out, and she and her mum travel to the safety of the dark forest, and they live with the granddad that she didn't even know about. And her granddad has a white wolf called Arto, and she discovers something amazing. Her granddad is a wildsmith. Now, I decided that a wildsmith was somebody with a superpower of healing animals and talking to them. And then as the story goes on, the clues build up, and Rowan starts to wonder, could she be a wildsmith too? And then in book two, the adventure continues. My idea was that in every book, Rowan will look after a different magical creature. And let me now tell you where some of those ideas came from. So basically, ideas can come from anywhere in your life. Now, if you look at these pictures of me, you could see some of the things that are in my life. That one, I don't know if you can see the one at the bottom, that's me when I was little. And you can probably guess that one of the things in my life is animals. So that's one of the places I got the ideas from. In particular, when I was writing this story in 2020, I had been fostering cats and kittens. So a cat who didn't have somewhere to live would come and stay with me for a while, and I would look after it until somebody adopted it. Now, all those cats are different, and some of them were very scared when they arrived with me. Some of them had some health problems and they needed to have medicine, and that just gave me the idea, well, what if I could talk to animals? One little cat that was so scared on her first day with me, she just sat in the corner and looked at the wall, and I thought, I wish I could talk to her and say, don't worry, you're safe with me, it's okay now. And I wish that I could have made them better, instead of having to drive to the vet all the time and give them medicine that they didn't like one little bit. So that's another place that the ideas came from. And then also in 2020, do you remember that strange year and how worrying and scary and difficult it was for so many different people? And one of the things that really helped me that summer was to be able to go for a daily walk in a wild place. I don't have a garden, but I live near some woods. That picture there, I hope you can see it. That's near my house, and there's some beautiful wild places. And we were allowed one daily walk, weren't we, back then? And I used to go for a walk with my daughter and with my dog, and I would go out under the trees. And no matter how worried I'd been, when I was under the trees and in the woods, I would just feel better. I could feel, ooh, like the stress melting away when I was in the woods. Have you ever felt like that? So maybe you've got a favourite wild place near where you live, or maybe it's a tree in a park, or a tree on your walk to school, or somewhere that you've been on holiday perhaps. So just have that ticking away at the back of your mind, because we're going to come back to that later. So wild places is definitely somewhere else the idea came from. And then the stories are full of magic. I really love stories that have magic in. So Northley, Whitney, Oak class have asked me that. What kind of stories do I like? And I will answer more questions at the end, but this slide answers that question because I really love magical stories. I think magic can help suck you into the story and help you get absorbed. And magic makes things happen, doesn't it? So here are some sketches that the illustrator did. And the illustrator of these stories is Joe Todd Stanton. And I love how he has drawn the witches. They look so magical in these pictures. And I just love magic in stories. Okay, so what I'll do now is read you a little bit from book 1. So this is where Rowan has left her home and she's gone to the dark forest. It's the first morning there and she's feeling a little bit strange and a little bit out of place as she sees the path leading into the forest, and she just has a strong feeling that she wants to go there. So this is chapter 7. Full of excitement and determination, Rowan darted along the path and right into the dark forest. Trees towered over her, their leaves filtering the light to make a soft green shade beneath their branches. Birds called, creatures rustled through the tangle of grasses and thorny vines. It was beautiful. As she walked through the soft grass, dotted with flowers, Rowan had the strangest feeling that she'd come home finally. There were so many different trees arching overhead. She recognised oak and beech and holly and her namesake, the rowan tree. Right now, the rowan was covered in beautiful blossom, but it would have red berries in the autumn. The name suited her, everyone said, because her hair was bright orange red, the same colour as the ripening fruit, and her skin was creamy white like the blossom. She came to a clearing edged in rocks. Rowan sniffed. She could smell burning. She saw that the bushes and trees at the far edge of the clearing had been scorched. Some branches were blackened, others hung down as if something had torn them off. What happened here? She whispered to herself. She turned slowly, seeing the damage to the trees, the crushed grass as if something enormous had been dragged along the floor. There were even deep claw marks. It looked as if something huge had been in a fight, but she knew there were no animals that big except in stories. Then she remembered the loud noise she'd been hearing since they arrived, and the way Grandpa and Mum had reacted strangely. What kind of animal made a sound like that, louder than a bellowing bull? What weren't they telling her about the dark forest? Just then she spotted a patch of smouldering grass. Rowan put her hand out and felt the heat rising up from the ground. What could do this? I don't understand. Again, she got the strangest feeling that someone needed help, someone close by. Her heart started beating faster as she looked all around. There, by her foot, was a piece of eggshell. She picked it up. It was large and curved and emerald green, too big to belong to any bird. She walked round the edge of the clearing, trying to understand for herself what had happened here. Just then she heard a noise a bit like a squeaky door. She followed the sound. It came again, something like a cat in distress. She climbed a large rock, listening hard, and peered down behind it. Rowan saw a flash of green scales. Was it a snake? She bent down to look closer. She recognized a creature from her storybooks. A green dragon was staring back at her. It looked very small and very scared. Rowan stared in astonishment, hardly able to believe what she was seeing. And I'll hold that up. I don't know if you can see the little green dragon. So that is the very first creature that Rowan rescues from the poachers. And it's the first creature that she fosters. So hopefully that has given you a bit of a flavour of book one. So, right, we have another poll for you now. I wonder, well, you can tell I love dragons. Who here loves dragons? Put your hands up if you love dragons. And if you do, why do you think we love dragons so much? And Chris is going to put up another poll here that everybody can answer. I don't know whether I can see the poll.
So just bear with me 1 second.
I'm going to have a quick peek at the questions. Oh, we've got a question here. What inspired me to be an author? Well, the answer is because I love books so much, for all those reasons that I said at the beginning, because I just love reading. And if I can help give someone else that experience that I had, especially when I was about 8, 9, 10, and I loved reading so much, then I'm really happy if I get to do that for somebody else. I still love reading though. I probably read about 3 or 4 books a week. I read every day, I think. So I'm going to say that I have answered that one. Brilliant. And we'll have a poll in just a minute. There we go. Why do we love dragons so much? And you might have a different idea. Is it for you that dragons are just cool? Is it they can fly and breathe fire? What's not to love? Is it because you can imagine them however you want? Or are you sitting there thinking, I prefer unicorns or something else, actually? So I don't think I'll be able to see the results, but maybe, Chris, you can let me know when people have answered.
Yeah, so we're just coming up to 12. So the majority are saying that you can imagine them however you want. So we've got 5 that have said they can fly and breathe fire. What's not to love? And then we've got 1 so far that said, I prefer unicorns.
Do you know, all that is completely fair enough, because that's your opinion and you are free to hold whatever opinion you want. When I'm doing a session like this and I'm live in a school assembly, I love to hear children's answers, because what I find is that people have really strong opinions about this. And these are some of my most common answers when I ask children this question, just because dragons are cool or because they can do so much, like flying and breathing fire. And also that thing about we can imagine them however we want, because nobody can turn around and say to you, oh, you've imagined that dragon wrong. Oh, it doesn't look like that. So dragons come from so many different cultures and times in history, and people have often made up stories about dragons, and that's something I really love, that we can reimagine them to suit our imagination and the times that we are living in. So you are also free to imagine them. Oh, do you know what? That one got 68% of answers. So a lot of people think like I do. Great. And next, I'm going to share with you some of my favourite dragon books. And I would say, please recommend your favourite dragon books to me, because we've had a real explosion of many different dragon books. And feel free to put in the chat some of your favourite ones. Great. So the first one I'm going to talk about, is The Boy Who Grew Dragons by Andy Shepherd. Has anybody read that series? I love that series. It is so funny. It's about Thomas, and he's really close to his granddad, and dragons hatch from dragon fruit in that story, and they're really cheeky little dragons, and they have incendiary poos. That means their poos start fires. So there's all kinds of mischief and mayhem, and it's really, really funny. And then In the Secret Dragon by Ed Clark, it's about a girl called Mari, and she is fossil hunting on a Welsh beach, and she thinks she's found a dragon egg, and then it hatches and there's a real Welsh red dragon in there. And then by Stephanie Burgess, we have The Dragon with a Chocolate Heart, and that's about a dragon called Adventurine, and her parents say, don't go out there in the world, there's these really scary creatures called humans. She does go out, and a wizard turns her into a girl, and she's got to figure out how to be a girl. It's about friendship, it's about chocolate, and they're two of my favorite things, so I love that book. And then How to Train Your Dragon, we've got Baker Street Year 6 saying they love that. Put your hand up if you've read it or seen the film. I think that is one of the most popular dragon series, isn't it? Other people have said they love The Land of Roar by Jenny McLaughlin, or all the books in the Eragon series. Yeah, one of my children loved those as well. But yeah, going back to How to Train Your Dragon, I really love the bond between Hiccup and Toothless that Cressida Cowell has imagined, and that's something that's definitely inspired me, that bond between the dragon and the person. I love to write about that. I've written about it in my Dragon Daughter series, and I've definitely written about it in Into the Dark Forest as well. So, somebody else has said Darwin's Dragons is also great. Yes, I've noticed that one, but I haven't read it yet. I would love to read that. Another vote for Eragon. Brilliant. So I think you guys love dragon books as much as I do. Right, I'm just going to talk quickly now about how you make a book, and then I'll be inviting you to start thinking up a story. So, like I said, anybody can be an author, but it isn't just an author who makes the book. It's a whole team of people, and it starts off, like I was saying, with me sitting at home, like in that picture, and I write in my notebook by hand. I've got really messy writing, and the first draft I do is not neat. There's loads of crossings out. I change my mind a lot. Sometimes I might draw a picture to help me imagine something, and that's draft one. And then later that day or the next day, I type it up, and I keep going until I've written what I think is the whole story. And then I rewrite it, and 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 I rewrite it. Guess how many times I rewrite it? It's probably more than you think. And when I think I'm ready, I email it to a person called an editor. Now, do you know what an editor does? In a way, they're a bit like your teacher, because they say, oh, this bit's great. And they might say, oh, you need to have another try at that bit. But they're also a bit like your friend, because they cheer you on and they say, you can do it. And they will give you feedback and give you ideas for the book. And I'll give you some examples of some of the changes my editor suggested for Wildsmith a bit later on. And then at the same time, the illustrator, Joe, is talking to the designer, and they're deciding how the book will look. And Joe is doing the beautiful artwork. And then the designer organizes the pages and chooses the font and puts the pictures in place. And there are all kinds of editors. Next, there's a copy editor who checks every detail when the story is finished. And she will say things like, oh, you've spelt that word, or you've missed a comma, or that character had blue eyes on page 2, and now they've got green eyes on page 4. So which one is right? And then there's another editor called a proofreader, and they check every line, every letter, every tiny thing. So there are loads and loads of people helping you get your story just right. So you must never compare your first draft with a finished book, because just remember all those many, many drafts and all those people helping the author to get it right. And then when the illustrations are finished, then everything gets sent to a huge factory, like picture number 3 there. And that's not my book, but these big machines that you can see in the background, ink is sprayed onto the page and the book is bound and sewn or glued together and the cover is put on, and then it gets put in a big box and put in a lorry and goes to the warehouse. And then from the warehouse, it goes in a smaller van to the bookshop or the library, and then it goes to you. So that whole process can take a few years, usually takes at least 1 year on top of all the time it takes you to write the story. And sometimes I can write quite quickly and I might do a draft in, say, 6 months. Sometimes it takes me years, and it depends on how many redrafts I have to do. So that is how you make a book. And there are loads of other people involved in sharing the word about the book and selling the book. So if you're interested in that kind of creative career, then do consider it, because I think it's a great way to earn a living. All those different jobs involved. And again, anyone can do it. So if you're interested about any particular job, whether being a designer or an illustrator or an editor, then you could go and research that and find out more. Okay. Right, now it's going to be your turn. So I believe that we are all full of stories, and you are the expert on your life. Nobody else can write the stories that you can write, because no one else has lived your life or knows your friends or has met your family or has watched the films you've seen or played the games you've played or been to all the places you've been to or dreamed the dreams that you've dreamed. So you get to write those stories. Nobody else can write them. And if you don't write them, the world doesn't get them. And I think that's a shame, because the world needs lots of stories. So I like to start with a few things that spark an idea. So let's do that now. So first of all, who is the main character in your story? Every story needs a main character for us to go along with and experience the story with. So in these books, it's Rowan, and Rowan is a bit like me, because I love animals, and so does Rowan. And when I was your age, I used to really love climbing trees and climbing in lots of places, and so does Rowan. So can you imagine a character who is a bit like you? Or maybe they're a bit like somebody you know, because feel free to borrow, like a little cheeky magpie. You could borrow something from one person, borrow something else from another person, and mix them up to make a new character. And nobody will know whether you've made it up or borrowed it. So I think some of you have got a sheet, an activity sheet, and you could work on that, or you could work on some paper that you've got in front of you, or you could just do the imagining and you could do the writing later. So see if you can think up 2 things about a character who is perhaps a bit like you. And to make it more interesting and realistic, can you make them a little bit opposite? Maybe it seems like opposites, but it's not really. So for example, you might have somebody who's brave, but they're a bit shy. Or you might have somebody who's really sporty, but also they're a bit lazy. Do you see what I mean? It seems like opposites and it's not really. So can you imagine a character and imagine 2 things about them? Just like I imagined Rowan was somebody who is curious, and she's also a bit stubborn. So that's how I began with Rowan. And I think that's a bit like me as well. So I'll give you a moment to do the imagining. Oh, while you're doing some imagining, I'll answer one more question. We have 4R in Hastings, and Alana, I hope I've said that right, would like to know how you find an editor. So an editor works at a publishing company. So when I finished the story, my story was sent to the editor, and it's like the editor chose my story. So that's how we work together. Some people work in a freelance way, which means anybody could ask them to edit their story. So you could just Google freelance editors, you know, if you're a grown-up who wants to have their work edited, and that's another way you can find an editor. Okay, so how is it going with your imagining of characters? Does anybody want to share what they've come up with for their character, with their two things that might be opposite? I think we better move on to step 2. So hopefully this is something that you can keep working on today in your classes. So the next step is every story needs somewhere to happen. And again, just choose whatever you love. It could be a park or a wild place or a beach you once visited. But you know what? You can also borrow from a film or a graphic novel, a comic, a game. Sometimes games have brilliant artwork, don't they? So you can borrow from anywhere. And what is this place like where your story is going to happen? And if you've got some paper in front of you, you could sketch it. Is it a forest? Is it, maybe it's an ice planet? Is it a desert or a waterfall? There's a picture here of some woods near me, and they definitely inspired the dark forest. And when you've sketched it, you could write down 2 things about your story world. Or we've got somebody doing a story set in a house. Oh, that's such a good idea. I know some great stories set in houses. What kind of house is it? Is it going to be ordinary? Is it going to be spooky? Is it going to be grand? What's it going to be like? And somebody else has chosen a park, which is another great idea, because I bet you know it really well. So you'll be able to describe it really, really well. Fantastic. So again, I'm probably going to keep moving here, but you could just sketch while I'm talking. So maybe it's a castle or a mountain, or it might be an ordinary street, you know, it might be somewhere you know really, really well, because stories can happen anywhere. It's up to you. Okay. So the next part, and this is kind of my favorite, I want you to imagine a superpower. Now there's 2 parts to this question. So just like Rowan discovers she is someone who can heal animals and talk to them, that is her superpower. And the name for that is being a wildsmith. So question 1, what superpower would you most like to have? And it could be anything. It could be sending electricity out. It could be mind reading. It could be time traveling. It could be shape shifting. It could be anything. I bet you come up with a really cool one. So that's part 1. And then part 2, what name could you invent for somebody who has this power? And I love to hear the answers to these questions. I find children are so imaginative and come up with some brilliant answers. So just take a moment to have a think. What superpower would you have for your character? And what name would you give it? So if it was a mind reader, what could we call that? Sometimes it helps just to say the words out loud. So would that be like a mind smith, or a thought reader, or a thought rider? You know, just play with words until you think about a great answer that suits your story.
Can I ask you a question, Liz?
Yeah.
What would your superpower be?
Oh, well, I guess I have to say wildsmith, because I've got so, you know, looking after so many animals and really wishing that I could make them better and talk to them. But actually, maybe I'd extend that and see if I could heal whole ecosystems, because isn't that what the world needs now?
That sounds amazing. It sounds quite rubbish compared to the one that I'd pick.
Oh, what did you pick, Chris?
I just feel like it would be like something silly, like eat so many biscuits, but without feeling nauseous and sick. Eat too many biscuits because I eat a lot of biscuits.
Oh, do you know what though? I can just imagine the story that would go along with that. So
It could be
this is the
fun.
thing that sparks the story. Oh, we've got somebody who said talking to animals, changing anything you touch to jewels. Oh, amazing. Mind reading, brilliant. Amelie's character is a shapeshifter. Oh, changing things to chocolate. Nice work, Georgia. Fantastic. See, this will start your story off because whatever your answer is, that will, start to form your story. I think Chris's story might be quite fun. I can imagine the illustrations that would go along with it, with lots of beautiful cakes and biscuits. A wolf rider. Oh, fantastic. Great. Is it Theo? Brilliant. Nice work. Green grower. Someone who can make plants grow instantly. I love that. Patricia's character can change into any animal she wants. Great. I would read that story, Patricia. Amazing work. Great. Okay. So these are the things that I learned writing Wildsmith. So keep thinking about your story and your character while I read those out. Start with something surprising, a change, and that way your reader jumps straight into the story with you. Drop clues along the way for your reader. So hopefully by the time Rowan figures out she's a wildsmith, you've already guessed. And then have you talked about the story mountain? That's like the most exciting bit in your story. Have a really dangerous moment. It's usually quite near the end. And finally, have your character fix the problem. So these are all things that my editor had to say to me. Yeah, Liz, it's a good start, but can you make it more surprising? Can you drop more clues? Can you make it more exciting at the end? And can you have Rowan really fixing the problem? Because she's the star of this story and your character will be the star of your story. Always, we've got some more great answers here. The power to think things true. Great. So you think something and then it happens. Amazing. Animal whisperer. Oh, I love that. Yeah, these are so great. Okay, so I'm aware that starting a story can sometimes be challenging. So if you like, you could borrow my opening line. So Wildsmith Book 1 starts with, on the morning her life turned upside down, all Rowan could think about was the race against her best friend, Bella. So obviously, if you did want to borrow it, you would have to change it. So you'd have, on the morning, his, her, their life turned upside down, change it to suit your character. All, drop in your character name. All your character could think about was, and then what are they thinking about? I think Chris's character is thinking about biscuits. And maybe an animal whisperer is thinking about an animal they know. So yeah, you get to decide. If you've got a different idea for your first line, that's absolutely fine. So by now, you've got all the ingredients you need to start writing your story. You've got your character, who is maybe a bit like you. You've got your place that you were starting to sketch out, and you've got the superpower that you were imagining, plus the name for someone with that superpower. And you've also got an example of a first line, or you can invent your own. So this is where I say basically over to you, perhaps later today and another day, depending on what your teacher wants to do with your class. And I wish you happy writing. Please let me know how you get on. So now I'm really happy to answer any questions that you might have. And maybe, Chris, you could help me out if I've missed any questions. Thank you so much, everybody.
Of course, let me just take myself off. Oh, gotta readjust the screen. Hi, everybody. I hope you'll agree that that was fascinating. And I have to say as well, if you're looking for a book that's really immersive, imaginative, and kind of just makes you want to write and get involved in this world, I definitely think you should grab two copies of Wildsmith. for your classroom, and I just think it has mass appeal as well. So for City of Secrets and Into the Dark Forest, please do. I've just put the links into the chat, and they are, I would say, staples for the classroom, for the bookshelf, so please do. And I'm going to go, I'm kind of tempted, I want to ask my own questions, but I'm going to go to the chat, the Q&A. So please do put your questions in. I'll have to ask you afterwards, Liz, my questions. So we had a question in the actual chat. So I'm going to be paraphrasing, but it was, how do you sort of, I suppose, build your characters? Like, do you have to have extensive notes to kind of know what these might sound like or look like, or what motivates them?
Yeah, that's I usually start with character, and I don't know everything at the beginning. I usually just know one or two things about them, and I'll write down what I do know. So I had quite a clear image of Rowan, probably because there's lots of Rowan trees around here, and I was thinking, aren't they beautiful? And then I just walk around with the idea in my head for a few days and think about it. So a big part of being an author is doing the thinking, and sometimes you can't rush it. So you have to do that, walking around with the idea in your head. And I know that sometimes in class you don't get that time to think as much because you have to do the task. So a mixture, and then I find out things by writing. So in the first draft, I won't know everything about the character, but do you remember I said I do all those second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh drafts? Every time I will add something so the character will get more and more rounded. Yeah, do you do that as well, Chris? Do you add more detail in your later drafts?
So yeah, so I don't know what I've done to the screen. I was trying to change the view. If I've wrecked the view for you, would you be able to just remove the sharing, sorry, for the slides?
Yeah.
If that's okay. So I write books as well. So I write mostly for teenagers. And I am writing a funny book at the moment. So I think with a lot of my books so far, they've been like, always been a little piece of me in there. And if I was to go back to school now, I think I'd be quite sassy because I was bullied at school. So I'm quite sassy now. So I've kind of got these two characters, and when I think about them, I think of like you were saying, where you've got one that's like, you know, almost those two different qualities that are quite similar but seem quite different. So we've got someone that's quite brave and confident, but then and sort of sassy, but then we have someone that's quite shy, and they kind of complement each other. So try to think about my own experiences, and I think sometimes that can be a really good way of getting you started.
Definitely. And actually, we've got a question here that really suits jumping onto that. So did I talk to Joe about how I imagine the characters? Yeah. So what I had to do was do a really quick description of each character and what they were like, and things like what they were wearing and their height or hair color or skin color or eye color. And then do you remember those sketches that I showed you a few slides back? That was the first thing that Joe did. And then I got to comment and say, oh yeah, that's just right. Or actually in the story, when he did the horse, the Pegasus in City of Secrets, I described it as being having black wings, and then he did it with white wings, and it was so late and about to go to press. So actually we went with Joe's imagining, and I changed the words to match Joe. So usually, yes, it is me who says this is how I've imagined it, but very occasionally I go, do you know what, Joe, you've done such a wonderful job, I agree, let's change the text.
That's amazing. I'm going to start picking questions, but just bear in mind, a lot of you are putting questions into the chat, and I have to scroll all the way back. It's quite difficult to see your questions. So if you could just pop them into the Q&A, it's easier for me to see your questions, and that would be great. And I'll try and get through as many as I can. So we have, what inspired you to become an author? And that's coming from North Lee Whitney. Sorry, it's my Irish accent. North Lee Whitney Oak class.
Yeah, so when I was at school, I didn't know any authors. I didn't know anyone whose job it was. I just loved to read. So we got to do quite a lot of writing in class. When I was in year 4, we had an amazing teacher, and I think we were allowed a lot more freedom when I was that age. And she used to let us write stories in class, and that's when I realized when I'm writing, just like when I'm reading, I forget everything else and I've just gone into my imagination, and that made me want to try. And it took me a long time of trying to be an author. It wasn't until I was a parent that I really tried very, very hard. And even then, it took me 3 books and 10 years of trying before I got published. But I just kept trying. And now I feel so lucky that I get to do it as one of my jobs. I have 2 jobs, and this is one of my jobs.
That's amazing that you said that. I actually never knew that, that it took you 10 years. It took me 10 years as well.
Yeah.
And again, it's quite similar. I wrote 2 books. And it's quite interesting. I feel like sometimes you need to write a book to learn how to write a book, because you
Definitely.
pick up the things that you need to do, right?
Yeah.
That's amazing. I'm going to just scroll down so I can pick a few different questions. So they've asked, how did you get your first book published, and did you find it difficult?
So what was difficult was the 2 books that didn't get published, because they took me a long time to write and a long time of trying. And an author often works with somebody called an agent who helps them find a publisher. And so months and months would go by, and my agent would said, no, nobody wants this one. And then with my first book that got published, it was really different. It was really quick. And a publisher say, yes, we definitely want this. And even a couple of people wanted to publish it. So I got to choose, and I got to meet the publisher and hear their vision for the story. And it was amazing. It was a bit like a Cinderella story that time.
That's amazing. I'm going to go to the one that I was going to ask, which someone else has asked, which is, what's next? What's coming down the pipeline next?
Yes, so Wildsmith book 3, I've just sent it to the copy editor. Do you remember that editor that checks every tiny detail? So I'm nearly finished. I'll just have to answer the copy editor's questions and do one more read through. And Joe is illustrating it. It's called The Hidden Sea. And I love the pictures so much. It's got a selkie in it. Do you know what a selkie is? It's so somebody who is a person on land, and then they put on a seal skin and they turn into a seal. And in book 3, Rowan is the person who has to be rescued. And also in about another week, I'm going to start editing book 4. It's called Magical Mountain Rescue, and it's got a dog kind of creature in it who is definitely based on one of my pets.
Do you write them together? Did you write 1 and 2 together and 3 and 4 together?
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I forgot what my next question was because I got so enamored with the answer. So are there any children's books that inspire you, and if so, which ones? And this is coming in from Saint's class in St. Nicholas Primary Academy.
So many, actually. You can probably tell from my bookshelf, I've just got so many children's books. So sometimes it might be a book that I read when I was a child, and sometimes it might be a book that, you know, someone else has written that really inspires me. And it's not that, you know, it's not like I'm kind of copying someone else's style, really. I'm just kind of thinking, oh, I love that story. I love how they imagine that. Oh, and then I start to think, well, what could I do that comes from me? Do you know what I mean? So I'm like taking inspiration from, you know, how they did something, but I would do something quite different. And some of my favorite authors are here. We've got Sophie Anderson, SF Said, A.M. Dessou, Phil Earle, Nizrana Farouk, Chloe Dakin, all kinds of people. Emma Carroll is up there. Loads of my favorite authors are children's authors.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that. How long does it take you to come up with the ideas for your books?
Yeah, do you know what? It's really hard to answer that, because sometimes I think the brain is such a wonderful thing. You don't even know what it's doing sometimes. So the other day, I just had a really tiny, quick snapshot of an idea that might become a story, but it's like I'm not looking at it too closely. I'm just hoping that it's composting at the back of my brain. And when I finished editing the Wildsmith books, if I look at it again, it might have grown into a little seedling. I don't know if that makes any sense to you, but that's sometimes what imagination is like. You've got to let it be busy in its own time, and then when you give it your full attention, then it grows into something bigger. So it might be weeks, it might be months, and it might take me a few months to write the story and get it right, and then it might take me a year to do all those different edits. So sometimes an idea can come in a flash, but it might take me a whole year to finish making it something.
Thank you so much for that. So to the next question, I quite like this question because again, it's one that I'm quite curious about. It wasn't one of mine, by the way. Is what job would you be doing if you weren't an author? What do you think you'd be doing?
So I do have another job, like a lot of authors. They need to have another job because sometimes being an author doesn't pay as much as doing a full-time job. So I actually teach as well as being an author, but I've had many different jobs. I've run a writing centre. It was a bit like running a hotel, but writers were the ones who came to stay there. I've worked in shops and cafes, and I really like that because you get to chat to people, and I do like chatting to people a lot. So a real mixture of things, and also cat fostering. That's another job that I did as a volunteer.
And I'm going to segue into a question that came in from North Lee, which is, do you ever keep any of the foster cats, the cats that you foster?
Do you know what? I was so tempted, but we didn't because it didn't seem fair on our cat. So no, I didn't in the end. And then we got a border collie, a young dog, and when we got her, we had to stop doing the fostering.
Oh, bless. Oh, this is a good one. If you could have a magical creature as a pet, what would you choose?
Oh wow, well please could I have a dragon? I don't know where I would keep it. Maybe a bit like this blue one here,
That's
because wouldn't it be
gorgeous.
amazing to be able to fly wherever you wanted on a dragon? That would be so cool.
Is that a model?
It's a model,
Yeah.
yeah.
Amazing. Sorry, I'll keep popping out the questions and trying to click that I've answered them. What made you choose the name Rowan?
Yeah, because in the woods near here, there's these beautiful, beautiful rowan trees, and I kept looking at them in the autumn when they had all their lovely berries on, and I could see that the birds were eating the berries, and they just seemed really beautiful to me. And what an amazing thing that they kept the birds going through when it got cold. And I thought, I got really interested in them, and I thought, can humans eat them? Can you make anything with them? And actually you mustn't eat the berries raw, but if you cook them up with apples and sugar, you can make a rowan jelly. And that's not something that people often do anymore. So I had a bit of a rowan obsession and I think that's why I chose the name.
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you so much. We've had a question that's asked, do you have a favorite author? And who was your favorite author, or what was your favorite book when you were a child?
Oh, that is so hard to answer. So I did have a favorite book. I used to love The Ordinary Princess by MMK. And do you know what? It's about a princess who runs away and lives in the forest. So you can see that these ideas about forests have been with me for a long time. So I think when I was about 8 or 9, that was my favorite book. But now I find it so hard to choose. You can see from my bookshelf. Please don't make me choose.
I'm just going to pop a poll in just as we're coming towards. We've got time for a couple more questions. We're just putting together the next event for the Reading Agency Present series. So I'm just going to pop in. So if you want to answer the poll while we're listening to Liz's answers, that would be great. Because once we end the Zoom, everything kind of goes off. It kicks everyone out. So I'm just going to pop that up now. And I'm going to ask another question.
Oh, somebody's asked if I like fiction or non-fiction, and
Yeah.
that's a great question. I actually really like both. I'm one of those people who likes to have about 4 books on the go, depending on what mood I'm in, and one of them is usually non-fiction. So I might have something that's quite easy to read and really immersive, and I might have a non-fiction, I might have a children's book, and then I might have another adult novel, you know, a novel for grown-ups, and I flick between them depending on what mood I'm in. And to me, that just seems really ordinary because we watch lots of TV shows or streaming, don't we? And I'm just the same with books.
I've got a really good question here, which is, if you could be a character in any children's book, which book would you choose?
Oh, well, I do like Hermione, I have to say. Or maybe somebody with amazing superpowers. I quite like to be Rowan, to be honest. Yeah, somebody with great superpowers, or dragons like Hiccup and Toothless. I quite like to be them because they've got a really cool island, haven't they?
No, I agree. That sounds amazing. Sorry, some of these are just repeat questions. So but they've asked, have you met any other authors, which I think the answer is yes. But has there ever been an author that you've thought about collaborating with?
Do you know what? Once I did talk to my friend Lou Hersey about whether we should write a book together, but we never got it off the ground. But that's something I'd be really interested in, because a lot of writers work in pairs, and the ones that I've spoken to really enjoyed it and learned a lot from each other. And there's an interview on my website, on my blog from years ago, where I interviewed people who worked in pairs. And yeah, that sounds fantastic. So I would like to do it one day. And we've got some book recommendations here. Somebody's recommending Katja Balin, and someone else saying My Friend the Octopus by Lindsay Galvin is amazing. Yeah, they're both great writers. Totally agree. Thank you.
I can see you and Lou writing something incredible as well. I can definitely see like the strands, like that, where that would cross quite well.
Yeah.
That's amazing. This is going to be the last question, and what I'm going to do in a minute is I'm going to pop a little survey link so that you can give us feedback, well, give me feedback on the event, and I will also send it in an email as well. And just to say that if you do enter it, please do include your email if you'd like to be entered into a competition. So we're going to give away a selection of lovely children's books if you fill out the survey, so please do. And the last question is, what are some of the ups and downs of being an author, which I think is quite an interesting question.
Yeah, so it's quite unpredictable, because you might write a story and you don't know if readers are going to love it or not. So when I started writing Wildsmith, I'd just written another book and my publisher told me they didn't want to publish it. So I was feeling really, really disappointed. And I thought, I'm just going to write something for me, for the girl that I was when I was 7, 8, 9, with Rowan, who is a bit like me. And I never imagined that it would be published, that it would be illustrated by someone as amazing as Joe, and that children would really enjoy it. I've been getting some lovely feedback. So I think that just goes to show, if you write from your heart, then you never know, you might strike a chord with somebody else.
I'm going to just ask one question that hasn't been asked, but that I'm going to ask is so this is the very, very last question. I promise. I keep saying it's the last question. I keep saying that. What piece of advice would you give to anyone that's listening that would like to write their own book or would like to become an author?
Yeah, so just that, really. Write the story that you would love to read. Write from your experience. Keep going, and don't be put off by all those drafts, because you will be making the story better and better. And yeah, I hope you enjoy it. That's all. Thank you so much.
No, thank you so much for joining us, Liz, and thank you to all of the schools, the lovely teachers and librarians that have made it possible as well for your classes and your students to join in. Thank you for all the lovely answers, the questions. If you do have time as well, please do fill in the feedback survey just to give us feedback. And also don't forget to get your copies as well of a little thing in the corner, but it's Wildsmith Into the Dark Forest and the City of Secrets, are books 1 and 2, and then book 3 is out April next year.
June, I think, but next
June.
Summer. Yeah.
Okay.
And for any teachers, there's some teacher resources as well that are linked to the book, so I hope those are useful for you.
Yes, I did send those resources across to the teachers, and I will send it across again. I'm going to send everyone an email this afternoon just with the resources again, just in case you joined a little bit later than when I sent them out, so you've got them for your class, and with the teacher notes, with some links where you can find out more information about Liz, and also just with a feedback survey. But thank you so much for joining us this morning, and I hope you all have a great day. Thank you so much, Liz.
Thank you, Chris. Thanks, everyone. Thank you.